Look at these, and they're like perfect little performers. We're going to talk about eggs today. So I thought, and it's been a beautiful day. We've been spending a lot of time outside. So I thought maybe we should talk a little, show our chickens off. These are 4 hens, and these are all pretty mature. So they lay at this point. They used to lay every day, but now they lay a little less often than that. And we have some new chicks for this year that are going to bring us up to 11. So they have a lot of fun in our backyard, and we first got the chickens mostly because we didn't like ticks, and we wanted to get rid of the ticks, and the chickens are awesome at that. And we've grown to love them. We've had them for how many years have we had chickens now? How many years, Vi?
8 or 9.
8 or 9 years?
Yeah.
And not all chickens make it to an old age. A few do. And so we have to supplement them with some new ones every once in a while. Let's head inside. Do you want to get some eggs, Violet? I think there's 2 over there right now. Your mom had told me. So this is a daily chore because they usually lay daily, and a little less than that sometimes. We have, right now we're getting 2 or so a day, but when you have 12 chickens, you might be getting 12 eggs a day, so you really need to make sure you collect them. Thanks, Vi. Awesome, you want to bring them into the kitchen?
Sure.
All right, so we're gonna head inside into the kitchen, and what we're gonna do today is we're going to, let's take one little detour while we're out here. Come on over here. This has caught my eye, and I was thinking it's a fun story to share. This is my rhubarb. It's popping through, and this rhubarb, we moved to this house right when I started Clover, so we've been here about 11 years, and I made a friend when I was doing the first food truck at MIT. He drove a shuttle between the Lincoln Laboratory and the medical center, which is where we parked our truck, and I started talking to him about bees and rhubarb, and he brought me a rhubarb plant one day, which is really fun. So this is the rhubarb plant he brought me. I planted it here, and it's really thrived. It's all like curled up right now, but by the end of the summer it'll be gigantic. It'll just unfurl, and maybe depending on how long we're all in self isolation here, we may get to cut some rhubarb and do some rhubarb recipes. Should we head inside now?
Sure.
Chickens are really good little performers. I was afraid we were going to have to go look for them. They're like right here. As we come in, you can take a peek at these are the new chicks. So this is called the Brooder Box, and basically until their feathers come in, they can't really handle colder temperatures. So they have this heating lamp and this warm box that they sit in. We put some roosts in there so they can get up. And especially at nighttime, they like to get up on the roost to sleep. But you can see them all. They're all different colors. And when we first got them, we only had one that was a light color. And then we remembered that the chickens they feel a little uncomfortable if they're different color than everybody else. I think probably has to do with being afraid of hawks and stuff. So we went out and got one more chicken. So we ended up with one more than we were originally expecting, but I think they're all going to be happy chickens. All right, should we? And you may recognize these are the fig trees from Clover Finn at 160 Federal Street. I usually have them as my office there, but I brought them home to keep them alive during our pause. Let's head inside to the kitchen. That's awesome. All right, and it's all still going through fine?
I think so.
Okay, this is a smooth startup. Maybe we need to start outside every day. So today we're going to do a few things. I thought I would spend some time. There have been a lot of requests for breakfast, and there have been requests for eggs. In particular, a lot of you are missing the egg that you get at Clover. And so I thought I'd show you guys how to make those eggs. They're pretty quick and not that hard to make necessarily, but you really have to follow the directions precisely or it won't come out. And so we'll go through that, and we'll make some Clover breakfast eggs. And I thought while we're at it, we should do a little bonus. Is a way that we like to eat eggs at my house is that we call dip eggs, with a little piece of toast that we dip in them. And so we'll make some of those as well. And I thought that it would be fun, since we're going to have the eggs, to make some breakfast bowls. So we have some breakfast bowls we serve at Clover right now, or we did right before we shut down. And instead of trying to recreate those, because I don't have all those same ingredients, I thought we'd make some other bowls that I have ingredients on hand. So you could go a lot of different directions with this. I thought people may have frozen peas. I've got a lot of frozen peas. I like them, and I bought a lot of them. They're in our freezer downstairs. So I thought this might be a fun thing to do. We can make like a frozen pea mash, sort of a springy kind of thing. And so that will be one of the breakfast bowls that we make. We'll lay the egg on a pea mash. The other thing I thought of is if you're following along, on Friday, Violet showed us how to make tortillas. And we have, from that show, some beans. Well, that show we did refried beans. These are not refried beans, these are black beans. But I thought that it would be fun for us to make a bean bowl. And we have some roasted vegetables from that show, some salsa left over, and we have some quick pickled vegetables that we did the other week from Michael Doctor's recipe. So I thought we would combine some of those things to make a really yummy bowl of beans. And now I'm remembering we did the refried beans. I should probably just use those so you guys can follow along more closely. All right, because people may not have the black beans in their fridge. So let's get started. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to boil some water. Turn off that fan so you guys can hear me a little bit better. And in this case, I think I need a pot that's in the dishwasher. So sorry, you'll have to wait for a second while I clean this up. I know the chickens looked like they were like all set peaks, all waiting there for us. And now you get to see that this is a live show. So I'm having to wash dishes. All right. So we just want a pot to boil water in right now, and you don't want something huge. You don't want something too small. Anything in this vicinity is going to work fine. And we're just going to start out with water in here. We're going to bring it to a hard boil. There's a lot of different methods out there to make eggs. And we're not making hard-boiled eggs today. We're making soft eggs. But we're going to bring this to a boil before we put the eggs in. So that will let us control what's happening. And so I'm just going to put that on a burner on high, and we're going to let that come to a full boil. And you going to get the eggs all ready? Awesome. And I'm going to talk for a second about timing, and then we'll come back to these. So for these eggs, for Clover's eggs, we do them for 6 minutes and 20 seconds. We do them just below a boil. So I'll just write just below a boil. But it's pretty hot, and so we do that for 6 minutes and 20 seconds. That's the first step. Second step is we shock them. So this is an ice bath, and we used to just say shock them, and then we had employees finding that confusing. So we ended up specifying. I think the Clover recipe specifies like 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something in the ice bath. I'd say for us, put it in for at least 30 to 60 seconds. The longer you put it in, the more assured you are that you've stopped all the cooking. And then, at this point, you can hold or reheat the egg. So that's the third step. And so this all started when I first started Clover. We weren't doing breakfast, but I thought it might be something that'd be fun to do, because I thought that instead of being a burger place or fried chicken place, we were presenting with people with a whole new way of eating. So I didn't see any reason that couldn't extend to breakfast. but I didn't know what breakfast would be. And in the early days, I used to pull the truck up at MIT, and this was when I didn't really have money to hire people, so I would pull it up at MIT to serve lunch. And the employees were my sister and my father-in-law, and sometimes people in line would help out. We had a couple early employees. Chris Anderson, who still works with us, who runs Food for Clover, was an early employee. And in those days, in the first couple months, we were just testing our menu out. And I had to pay for the commissary kitchen we used. It was called New Esther at that point, but now it's called Commonwealth Kitchen. And I had to pay by the hour at that kitchen. So to save a little bit of money, I realized my truck had a full kitchen in it. It had a sink, it had everything I needed. So instead of doing prep at this commissary kitchen that I had to pay by the hour, I would just load up my truck in the morning and go over to the site at MIT that I was already paying rent at, and I would start preparing the lunch. So I started doing that to save a little bit of money, and then as I was doing that, people who would eat lunch with us would come by and knock on the window and say hi, and some of them would ask if we had anything. So that was how we started selling breakfast. I just wanted some simple things to sell people. And our first items were oatmeal and popovers, because I thought I could just grab them and hand them to people. It'd be very little work. And I didn't want to ever do eggs because I thought that fast food eggs are pretty awful. I still think most fast food eggs are pretty bad. But then one of my employees early on, Jeremiah, came up with the idea. He was like, well, what if we do like a sous vide egg? And this is a kind of egg that Dave Chang was making famous at that time. And it's an egg where you cook it in sous vide cooker, so you can control the temperature very precisely. And you hold it at a temperature where the yolk won't get hard, but the white will. And you hold it at that temperature for a long time. So this is a long story, but I'm giving you the origin story, and we need to wait for the water to boil anyway. So his idea is, what if we sous vide egg? So we got a sous vide, and Rolando, who was working with us like one day a week at that time, came out, and we were playing around the sous vide, and we could get a good result, but we found that we would have to cook the eggs in the sous vide for a really long time. But this magic fact that there's a temperature where the white is firm but the yolk is still custardy and soft led us to keep experimenting. It was something that was going to work a little bit better for our operation. And so we ended up coming up with this approach where what we're basically doing is we're soft cooking an egg to the perfect spot that we want it. We're freezing that moment in time, and then it allows us to bring it back up to a warm temperature, and you can hold it now at a temperature where the egg is nice and warm, but the yolk is never going to solidify. And so this became a really well-controlled process for us. This is how we make eggs at Clover. It's awesome for the restaurant because we can make batches of eggs. We make them each morning. We can make batches of eggs, and then we can hold those eggs. And if we don't sell them for breakfast, we don't throw them away. We call them reboils. We then boil them again, and it turns into a hard-boiled egg, and we can use them on the egg and eggplant sandwich or some other use. So this is how we do eggs at Clover. Now, these are my notes from earlier today, because I tried an egg at 520 and I tried one at 620 just to make sure that this was going to translate. When we developed this recipe for Clover, we have to specify the size of the pot, the amount of the water, the number of eggs that go in at a time, because all those factors can throw off the temperature and the cooking time. So it becomes a pretty specific recipe. And at home, I didn't have control of all those factors. I was basically cooking a couple eggs like this. And so I was curious what would work. And what I found was 620 wasn't all the way solid. I think we'll cook one of each today as well, so you can see. Maybe we'll do one in between. I think most people are going to like 6 minutes at home. 620 at home is probably a little too much. At Clover it's perfect. I think at home it's a little too much because the batch size is different. 520 is maybe a little on the lighter side. And basically the white is fully cooked at this point, but the yolk is a little more runny. So if you like a yolk that gets a little thicker in texture, you want to get closer to that 620. Probably don't want to go over the 620 mark, or you're going to get a solid yolk, which isn't what we're aiming for. A cool thing about this, once you hit the ice bath, you can hold these eggs. So you can make these up in a batch at home. Don't make a giant batch, you can throw off all your timing. But you can make a reasonable sized batch, and then you can keep these in your refrigerator, and you could bring them into hot water and rethermalize them basically when you're ready to eat them, which is a lot of fun. All right, so I think that's probably a good overview of what we're doing. For the dip egg, I found we really like 5 minutes. I started with 4:30 for the first one. Blue thought that was a little bit too watery, and I think 5 minutes came out really beautifully. So these are the things we're going to do. Now notice, we're talking 5 minutes 20 seconds here. 5 minutes precisely here. This is not something you're going to guess at. You're not going to look at the clock and sort of count how the arm's going around. These are very, very precise times. You have to have a timer to pull this off. There's no other way to do it. That could be your watch, that could be a phone, a tablet, that could be an old-fashioned timer, but you have to have something that can keep the time down to seconds. Otherwise, you're just not going to make this work. All right, so let's come over here and take a peek. We're not quite at a boil yet. So while we're waiting a minute more, I'm going to set us up for the next step.
These are the dip egg holders.
Yeah, Blue's getting ready. All right, so right here I've got water, and all that is water. I'm going to boil this water, and I'm going to put some salt in that water, and that's going to be used to cook my peas. So I'm just getting that ready for the peas. Whoops, good thing I put my hand there. Did you see that? It wanted to all jump in. All right, so I don't need the whole jar of salt. Put some salt in the water. And I'm going to set something else up. This is sort of fun, but you guys may have remembered the pickles from the other week. Some people may have made some at home. I'm going to take some of the pickle liquid, and we're going to use some of there's some carrot pickles in here still. We're going to use some of those today. And I'm just going to pour some of this pickling liquid into a pan. It's a very small little saucepan. And then I'm going to bring that up to temperature as well, up to a boil. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some onions in there. We're going to quick pickle some onions, which will go on the breakfast bowl. So it's a nice example of how you can reuse the pickling liquid. And I'm trying really hard with this show to show you guys some really simple recipes that build upon one another. So as we go on, recipes will get a little bit more complicated, but we'll also start incorporating some of the items that we have, because when you're cooking at home, this is the thing that's really beautiful. You don't have to start from zero every single time. You get to build upon things, and then when you're making a little breakfast bowl, you can pull out your leftover beans and your salsa and your veggies, and you're ready to go. All right, so this is just coming to a boil, and I think my spoon is in the dishwasher as well. Sorry. There it is. All right. Okay. So there's other ways to do this, but I like this spoon a lot. If you have a slotted spoon like this, is a great way to introduce your eggs to the water. If you don't have a slotted spoon like that, you can approach this in a different way. I'm going to get out my phone because I'm going to be using this as the timer. Okay. And so I've got it on. I'm gonna set it on a stopwatch. I'm going to do that because I'm going to put a couple eggs in and pull them at some different times for today. Do you want to help do this, Blue?
Sure.
All right, so I'll do the first one. You can do the second one.
Okay. 3, 2,
Okay.
1.
So a trick here is eggs sometimes explode a little bit when they get into the hot water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in and then bring it up. And that just gives the shell a moment to adjust to the temperature of the water. And then I'll bring it in again gently. And that will help keep the egg from blowing up. So I'll do hot in.
What about the other one?
And then down.
Same.
That's good. Yeah, they're all coming in within a few seconds of each other. And down. Okay. And we might as well make dinner for oopsies. I lost that one. We'll use it for something else later. Now, some of the eggs, if your eggs are very small, they'll cook a little differently. So you want to keep that in mind. So we've got the timer going now. And we're going to cook these. I'm going to pull a couple of them at 5-minute mark. Those will be for the dip eggs, and then and I'll pull one of them at one at 5:20, one at 6 minutes, and one at 6:20. All right, so we're going to get ready now for we're going to get ready now for the dip toast. So we're just cutting some toast and throwing it in the toaster. Okay, so that's working right now. And my water for the peas is not quite there yet. So my cutting board is, I think, in the dishwasher too. Dishwasher action here today. All right. Okay. All right. So I have these onions. We're in self-isolation, so we're a little limited in ingredients sometimes. So I put these onions in water. I didn't want to throw them away. These are from previous things I was making, but I really don't like that oniony taste they get when they sit out in the air. So submerging them in water is a nice way to avoid that. Right now we're at 2 minutes 30 seconds, so we're just going to keep an eye on that. What I'm going to do is I want some very thin slices of onion. Now, if you don't have onions, you could use leeks, you could use green onions, scallions, you could use chives. I think we have some chives starting to come out of the ground, some wild onions. Any of those things will work fine. And I'm going to take these onions and I'm going to reserve about half of them for the bowl of the peas. And in that case, I'm just going to want them raw. And the others I'm just putting into the quick pickling brine. And we're at 3 minutes 20 seconds now, so we're still counting down.
Should we put our peas in?
What's that?
Should we put our peas in?
Yeah, this is coming to a boil right now, so let's put the peas in there. All right. The peas are not going to cook for very long. We're basically just going to bring them up to temperature so they are not frozen, and then we're going to pull them. I think they get less and less sweet the longer you leave them in there, so we're going to try to keep them sort of sweet and yummy. We're at 4 minutes right now, so we're getting close. And it sounds like my toast may be ready. Okay. Think we should do more toast than that, Blue?
Yeah.
All right, so when you're making these soldiers, we like to have a lot of butter on it. You got it, Blue?
Yep.
All right, you want to spread that on? So we're going to be pretty generous, and we're going to spread the butter first, and then we're going to cut that into little soldiers. All right, we're at 4 minutes 30 seconds. Violet, you want to come here and keep an eye on it? Tell me when it's at 4 minutes 50 seconds, okay?
Okay, 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Tell me when it's there. It's almost there.
Done.
Done. Okay. Keep it going. All right, so we're going to take these out at 5 minutes, and these are going to be our dip eggs, okay? So here we go.
And
One.
5 minutes.
Great. And we're going to take out 2. We'll do 2 dip eggs. All right, the next one's going to come out at 5:20, and this next one we're going to put into an ice bath. How are we looking there, Vi? 5:20? All right. So what I have here is I've got ice and water, and that's going to stop the cooking of this egg. All right, so I'm just going to let that sit. The next one's going to come out at 6 minutes, and the one after that at 6:20. So I'm just showing you a range of different cooking times so you could see the difference. And what I would suggest at home is you try an egg before you make all your eggs. And you might even try a couple eggs like this to sort of bracket it out. Because depending on the pot you're using, depending on the temperature, how much water, how many eggs at once, all those things can affect the cooking. How are we looking there, sweetie? About 6 minutes?
Yep,
Bingo. So So the second egg is going to come out. And we're almost there, the last one. At Clover, we put so many eggs in at once, we need a special basket to put them in. Otherwise, it would take, by the time you got the last egg in, the first one would already be cooked. And we're at 620 right there. Perfect. Thank you, Violet. Okay, so we're going to let those sit in this ice water for a minute or two. The brine back here has come to a full boil, and those onions are sitting in that brine really nicely. Over here, I have the peas, and I'm just going to taste one. And those are just about ready. So those are going to come off. As I said, I don't like to go too long with the peas. I think they end up being less sweet.
I can start. Are they the peas we had this morning?
We're going to make the same kind, yes.
All right. Use some lemon.
Yeah, hold on a second there, though. We'll get to that. All right. So we've just, the eggs are done, but we're just going to wait a moment before we open them up because they're cooling down. You can stop the timer. Perfect. Thank you, Violet. All right. So these now have been chilled. So those eggs are all set. We'll open those up in a minute. Put those in a bowl here. And then those eggs are all set. You can just set them aside there, Blue. And I'm going to cut up and make a little bit more toast. Okay. Yeah, I can cut those for you. So let's do these guys first, and then I'll make up the bowls. And I think the kids might want to snack on these because this is something we usually have for breakfast time, but everybody loves this in my family. All right, so let's get a little plate to put those guys on. So these are called soldiers. I don't know why. I think it's a British thing. These little toasts, and you dip them in the egg. And I think these eggs are called different things. They're called soft cooked eggs. There's other names for them too. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a spoon, or you could use the back of a knife, to come around it gently. And once I've got it broken through all the way there, I'm going to reach in and pull that open. And then I think it's yummiest if you take a little butter. In this case, it's a fake butter, but you take a little butter and you stick it in there. And we also sometimes like to put a little bit of salt in there too. I'll bring out the fancy salt. So put a little bit of salt in there. And then we should use a plate, because otherwise it can make a little bit of a mess there, bud. You got yours, Vi? How's it coming out?
Really good.
I'm going to taste one. So this is what we're aiming for. The yolk is nice and soft. The white is like just coming together. You dip a little toast in there. It's really, really yummy. As you finish that, you can scrape out the inside of the egg. You want a hand, or you got it, buddy?
Salt would be nice.
So, really, really yummy way to eat eggs. Obviously, we don't serve them like this at Clover, but it's a really delicious way to serve eggs. They're pretty simple and fast too. Kids like this so much, they usually ask for this for their birthday breakfast. So we often have this at everybody's birthday breakfast. Okay, let's move on. We'd also have these Easter morning, things like that. Let's move on to making some bowls. All right, these peas are over here. All I've done is strain them. And now I'm going to take about half of the peas that I have. And this doesn't really matter. I mean, whatever size bag of peas you have, just take about half of it. So I'm going to take about half of them. I'm going to put these in the blender. And I'm going to take a lemon. Take a lemon, and I'm going to squeeze that lemon. that lemon in there. And then I'm gonna take some olive oil. I'd say in this case I'll probably put like a tablespoon of olive oil in there. I'm gonna put a little bit of pepper, some ground pepper in there. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt as well. So probably a quarter, half a teaspoon of salt, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon, not a lot. You can do that to taste, so you can try it and adjust it if you want to. And I have here, some basil leaves and some mint leaves. I'm gonna put a little bit of mint in there, put a little basil in there. The mint's left over from cleaning out the refrigerators at Clover. I got a whole case of mint, which I haven't worked through. And I added a little bit of water to that. You could start blending this without adding the water, but what I know is that it's going to be a little bit dry and I'm going to need some water, so I just preempted that. And I put this on my blender. Today I've got this cool wand thing, but you can do it without the wand. And I'm just going to start out at the low setting. The wand just helps you get close to the blade. This wand is made not to hit the blade. If you are using a wooden spoon, turn off the blender before you stick the spoon in it, otherwise you'll have an accident. So I'm basically just mashing these, and we're almost there. Okay, there we go. So I'm just mashing those up. Now I'm going to take, let's see, what bowl is this bowl big enough? You know what? This might be the perfect size bowl. So I'm going to take a bowl that's about the right size to combine everything. And I'm going to put my peas in there. I'm going to take my mash here. And this is something you can make a big batch of this and keep in your refrigerator. It would keep in your refrigerator just fine. You could also have this for dinner some night alongside, something else, and then you could have some leftovers that you use for your breakfast bowl in the morning. So I think it's probably most likely that if I'm making this for breakfast, it would be using up something I have left over, not making this from scratch. But this is a little egg pot we're gonna make, and there we go. So that's my mashed peas. I'm gonna taste that, and I think I could use a little bit more salt. I think I could use a little more salt, so I'm increasing the salt. Mix that in. Take another taste. I'm gonna do a little bit more salt still. So again, we've done this a number of times on the show, but when we're adding salt, we want to be careful. It's not unusual for me to take a couple turns at it to get to the right spot. If you oversalt something, it's really hard to come back from that. Really, really good. So I'm aiming for that spot where whenever I'm seasoning food, I'm aiming for that spot where I really want another bite. So I want to dive in with another spoon because it was really, really yummy to me. And that's always what I'm aiming to get to. But you don't want to taste the salt. So I'm trying to stop short of that. So I'm going to take this pea mash, and I'm going to put a nice, generous 2 spoons in this bowl. We'll make a little nest. We're going to do sprouts in a future week, so if you don't have sprouts, you will soon. We're going to teach you guys how to make sprouts at home. Going to put a little bit of mint leaves in there, put a little bit of basil. If you have any other fresh herbs, they'd be yummy in here. Whatever you have is going to work fine. You don't have to exactly what I'm showing you. I'm going to put some raw onions in there, and last thing to do, I'm going to put some, this is sauerkraut. I made, and at home, we haven't done sauerkraut on the show, so I don't know if everybody's gonna have sauerkraut at home. You could skip this, but this is how I would make it for myself right now. Sauerkraut is a lot of fun to make, and the reason this is such a beautiful color is I had red cabbage and green cabbage, so it's a combination, and it is a really beautiful color to it. All right, and then eggs. So here are our eggs. So I'm going to crack these open. So these eggs are fully cooked. They should be. Hoping they're cooked. And what I'm going to find is I'm going to carefully peel the shell. It's a funny fact about eggs, not everyone probably knows. Clover employees know this. Fresh eggs are much harder to peel than old eggs. And some people intentionally age their eggs in order to make them easier to peel. We tend to have very fresh eggs at Clover, and so they're almost always very hard to peel. So you can see how a lot of the piece of the white came off on me. It's not because I did a terrible job, it's just the nature of a really fresh egg. So what I'm doing is just cracking it. If I have a really old egg, sometimes you can just roll it like this, and the shell just comes right off. It's actually really satisfying and easy, but with the fresh eggs, it can be a little bit more work. I'm just going to carefully come through this, and some people like to do this under running water. I've tried that. I don't think it necessarily helps a lot. So this is just exactly what we'd want to see, which is the white is all firm, but you can see the yolk inside isn't all the way cooked. And same here as well. The yolk will go through some transitions with temperature, and it will get more and more solid to the point where it's like a hard boil. So there's like there's a point where it's just warm, it thickens a little bit, and there's a point where it starts to firm up, and it's like I don't know, semi-translucent and pretty thick, and then there's a point where it gets all the way hard. All right, so that's the third one. Now, I don't remember which of these is which in terms of which one is. Remember, we pulled 3 different times. One's at 5:20, one's at 6 minutes, and one's at 6:20. But I think we'll be able to tell when we break them open which is which. I'm just going to rinse the shells off, any left shells, and then these are still warm in my hand, which is nice. So we chilled them, but not so much. But if yours are not warm, if your egg is feels cold, or you've kept it in the refrigerator, you can just re-thermalize it, and that wouldn't take very long. You just put it in some warm water until it comes to a nice temperature. And I'm going to take this egg right now, and I'm going to put it on this little pot. And I like eggs a little bit broken, so you can see, and we can look inside of it. I would guess this is one of the earlier eggs. Maybe this is the 520. We'll look at the others, but you can see that there's a little bit of the white on the outside is not totally solid. So if that's how you like your egg, then this is going to be the time to go for, and we'll show the other examples in a minute. Awesome. All right. So let's make the other eggs up. So I'm gonna. You want to make more dip eggs? Well, we will have dinner pretty soon. Yes. But let's just get through the things for the show first. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take some of these refried beans. Heating up some oil on my pan here, and I'm going to wait until the pan's hot. This is a little trick if you don't know. If you put things into a cold pan and then heat it up, they almost always stick really badly to the pan. So you want to bring the temperature up first and then put the food in. And so we're going to wait a few seconds here for the temperature to come up, and then we're going to use that pan just to heat up some of those beans. We're almost there, not quite. And we're going to use one of these little bowls. I think in this case, let's use some of our roasted vegetables. If you missed it, we did this on the show this past Friday. We made tortillas and beans and salsa. It's a very ambitious show, and we roasted vegetables. So I have some leftover roasted vegetables from that. I have some beets here. Can you see this? Are you afraid it's not going through?
I know, lots of questions.
Oh, lots of questions. Awesome. All right. Well, let's open this up. That's cool. All right. We'll get you set up for that. Hold on a second. Okay. So that should be able to see the questions. All right. So just coming back into this. So I have roasted vegetables here. I have potato, onions, beets, parsnip. I think we did a turnip or something as well. Figure out how to turn the sound off. There you go. All right. And so I just put some of these roasted vegetables in here. I haven't even heated those up. All right, this pan is nice and hot now. I'm going to go ahead and put these beans in. You hear that sizzling noise? That's good. These would probably stick really badly if I wasn't hearing that noise. So that's a good amount. All right.
One question was, those are all of our chickens' names.
Okay, we'll have to go through the chicken roster. I might need a little bit of help, especially with the new one.
I think I know.
Okay.
All
right.
And then, you see variation in the egg cook time from refrigerated versus room temperature eggs.
Good question. I have seen recipes that say make sure your eggs are room temperature. I've never done that. I think the ones I did this morning were refrigerated, these ones room temp. I think that difference is really minor. I think in the boiling water, there's probably a couple seconds it's going to impact, but it's going to be relatively minor. All right, so I have some refried beans here, also from that episode on Friday. The refried beans are so simple, yet one of the most delicious things I know of. I absolutely love these beans. They look so simple, but they have so much depth of flavor. If you missed the show, I'd really encourage you to go find it. It's totally worth watching and learning how to make these beans. I think you'll make them over and over again. So I've got some refried beans here. I've got some roasted vegetables, and I'm now going to pull out some of my pickled red onions. So I think these are going to be super yummy with this.
There was another question.
Yes, what's the other question?
So someone said they usually steams their peas, and they're wondering if boiling them was better.
Yeah, so I started out steaming them, and I think the concern is you get them waterlogged or something, but you know, I boiled them for the past 4 or 5 years when I make them, and I find it's pretty quick, it's foolproof, and I don't really think it has any negative impact on the final quality. So you could do it either way. I mean, we're just trying to heat them up. Really, you could even microwave them. So these are some pickled carrots. I just chopped these up, and I'm going to add those in there. And now I'm going to take one of these eggs. Let's take this one. I'm curious how that one will break. And I'm going to add the egg here. I'm going to put a little bit of salt on it. And I'll put a little bit of salsa with that. And again, I'm just, I'm working with what I have. So if you have some different things in your fridge, you can riff on that. Blue, you want to grab me a little bit of hot sauce? I think we need some
There's
heat there.
another question from a past episode.
Yeah.
They were wondering if they could use a ceramic burr grinder
Okay.
that they grind the coffee with
Yeah.
to grind the flour.
I wouldn't do that. Question was, can you use a ceramic burr grinder to grind your flour? I don't think it's probably a good idea, and we can get more into flour grinding in a future episode. So this is a little bit of hot sauce that I had fermenting over there. We haven't done that in an episode yet either, but we will some point soon. You use any hot sauce for that. There's nothing special about that. So I'm going to break this egg open. We're going to see how it is. Okay, so you can see that consistency of the yolk is a little more thick. This is the one that I would aim for. I think this is beautiful. This is closer to what we tried to aim for at Clover. And like I said, there's always a little variation depending on your egg size and some other things, but I think that's a really, really beautiful egg. I'm really happy with that. That's awesome. And all right, so we've got 2 breakfast bowls. I've got a little bonus treat that I'm going to share with everybody, and that's this is not a very vegan-friendly episode, but I have a little trick I'll share with everybody that I think if you're not eating eggs, may be really fun for you. Did you already grab those toasts? Yes. Okay. But thankfully, one's still here. That's a close call. Here we go. So I've got a little piece of toast here. She's buttered it for me, which is awesome. But I stopped it from getting cut up into soldiers. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this mash on it. So this is I'm gonna make this toast, this alternative to a avocado toast. And I'm gonna put some fresh onions on there. I think that'd be really yummy. I'm gonna put some of my sprouts on there as well. And maybe I'll put a little bit of mint on it. Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this is a delicious little toast. Put a little bit of my kraut on there. And then I'll probably finish this with a little bit of the fancy salt. And a little bit of pepper. Maybe we should do a little bit of this hot sauce on there too. Would Violet going ugh? You were hoping the hot sauce wouldn't go on it?
Yeah, it's hot sauce.
Yeah, it is hot sauce. So that's a beautiful alternative. No egg in this one, obviously, but a really nice sort of separate use of the mashed peas. That is it for the episode today. So we finished a little earlier than we usually do. Oh wait, we got more questions. Sorry, pause. We got some questions.
There's just one more
Yeah.
question. How do you reheat the eggs?
So all you do to reheat the eggs is, I'll just take one and show you. So this is an egg right here that was already cooked. And I've got hot water right here. And I'm just going to take my slide spoon. I'm going to bring that egg into the hot water for a little while. If you want to, you can hold the eggs in the water, but in that case, you have to keep the water at exactly the right temperature. And so you probably need a thermalizer for that or something, or a sous vide setup. So for most people, that's not going to be realistic. But in this case, if you're just making them at home, just dip that into the hot water. Feel the egg. You're not trying to get it like piping hot. You're just trying to warm it up. And this one's now warmed up really nicely. So I should probably break this one open so that we can see what this last one is. Which bowl should I make? Maybe I should make another one with mashed peas, huh? I think that looks good.
Yeah. Because I wanted that one, but I like the...
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Let's do this. Let's do this. Put that in there. And of course we need some kraut too. Kraut is an amazing thing. We'll do a show on it, but it has lots of incredible vitamins in it. It's got a lot of vitamin C in it actually. It's really awesome. All right, so this one's a little more cooked. You can see the yellow was starting to solidify on the outer edge. This is probably the 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, this is the time we cook it at Clover, but we're cooking more eggs at a time, so it's a little bit different. So I think the 6-minute egg is probably what you want to make at home. So I think there's also a couple other questions I can answer quickly. There was a couple questions the other day that came up after the show about what temperature or how long I was cooling the cookie dough batter. Yesterday we did chocolate chip cookies. How long was I putting that batter in the fridge? I think 15, 20 minutes is fine. So it doesn't, but it can go longer than that. Yeah, you got another one?
Names.
Chicken's names. All right, we can see how many of them we can remember.
So right now, the older ones.
Let's start with the first four, yeah.
Those four are Sprout, Belly, Sprout, Belly,
May.
and what was the last one? May,
Peach.
Peach.
Yeah.
Peach has those four, and then our new chicks are named Octavia, Wisteria, Black Lotus, Aurora, Autumn, Snowdrop.
I
That's
think that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
You guys got it? I'm gonna one more thing. So as far as recipes go, I will post a little bit more up later. But this is what we have for right now. And the reason I just grabbed this iPad is I just want to go through some fun things that people have shared with us. Some quick pickles at home, which is awesome. Somebody asking for breakfast bowl recipes. I hope you tuned in and loved the show. Popovers, such an amazing popovers, more popovers, and more popovers, and more popovers. And it's just really fun to see. People are doing a really great job. I think a lot of these pop better than the ones I did on the show, which is really awesome. Some cheesy toast and Roman tomato soup. That looks really yummy to me. I sort of want to make that again. And another cheesy toast and Roman tomato soup looks really good. And I love seeing the different variants that people are playing around with. Really, really cool. So keep sharing with us what you're doing. I'd love to see more of it. If you post on social media, just hashtag In Air's Kitchen, and we'll be able to see what you post. But I'm really excited that people are making food at home, because that was what we're hoping to inspire with the show. We'll be back again, but not tomorrow. Tomorrow is my daughter's birthday, so we're taking it off. We have a lot of birthdays around this time of year, but we'll be back on Thursday. Thursday we're going to do chili and cornbread, one of my favorite things. And then on Friday, we're going to do pizza. So we're going to ease our way into bread. This Friday, we're going to do a quick pizza, which is a little different than what we've done in the past. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be back tomorrow. What?
Cherry soda?
Oh, we're going to do sodas on Friday, too. So Brooke is trying to remind me to say that we're doing pizzas and soda. And we're going to get into breads. I've been working really hard to try to figure out bread recipes that are going to be robust enough that I can share it and everybody feels really successful the first time they make it. And but I also want breads that are nutritious. So we're getting closer to a point where we're going to be ready to do that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.